Get ready to sell new houses and more houses with the new rules that are coming up. Hello, everybody. We have a very special guest today, Meredith Munger with Cross Country Mortgage. Welcome, Meredith.
Thanks, Roxanne. It really is exciting.
Well, we can't wait to hear it, but before you get started, let's put it out there. This is Roxanne Govari with Pemberley Realty here in San Diego, California, along with my partner Santiago Guerin.
Hello, everyone. Amazing guest
And
today. So I'm really excited to hear about, what's going on. So
so please give us your thumbs up if you have any comments, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube. Give us your comments and, of course, subscribe to our channel so that when we are bringing amazing guests such as Meredith, you are notified and you can join us. Okay, and without further ado, Meredith, how is it going?
Well, it's crazy over here. As you know, I predominantly focus on building new houses and predominantly ADUs. And ADUs are types of houses. And we just had 54 new bills enacted in January 1. I know it's like whiplash. And the California Department of Housing and Community Development, which now enforces those rules, these overlay local municipalities. So local municipalities and planning boards actually don't really have say in these anymore. So anything you might have tried to do in the past is all null and void, right? It's now available. So the basic in practice, what this means is every single family home zoned R1, not in agricultural areas, but R1 standard homes, may have up to 6 total home units on it. That can include, I know, right? It can
Yeah.
include what they call an internal conversion. And that's like if you take a house with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths and you split it in half, and one side becomes the primary and the other side becomes the internal conversion. You can have a junior ADU, which is an attached garage. You can have 3 ADUs, and you can have 2 ADUs, and you can have something called an SB9 unit, which is a true second house with a minimum size of 800 square feet, no maximum sizes. The other ones have a maximum size. That is by state law. That is the baseline. Some cities, like City of San Diego, have gone above and beyond, and we had the ADU bonus program. So has Los Angeles. The other thing that came into play is that among in transit corridors, and those are explicitly mapped out, but basically where there's major transit like subway lines, very strong regular bus lines, that kind of stuff, you can build up to 10 units on a single family zoned lot. And that is called SB 79. And the goal of that, it can be mixed use housing. So for example, you might have an old house that somebody's converted into an Italian restaurant, right? Local neighborhood place. You can take that property, build a space for the Italian restaurant in the bottom, and then maybe have condos up above. And those units may be condotized, or they can and sold off, or they can be rented. And what's really exciting also on the local level, we already know City of San Diego allows the condotization and sale of ADUs. And now the County of San Diego is allowing that as well. And while I love renters, homeownership is critical to wealth in America. It is the number one factor in prosperity and financial stability for anyone. And so the ability for young people who are buying their first home to buy a condo. Condos are great stepping up things, but they're also great stepping down things. I myself just moved, my kids are in college. I just moved out of a 6-bedroom house that I never want to clean again. And I moved into a 2-bedroom, which is delightful. And so those are the kinds of things that is really exciting, especially for people. Most of my clients are really struggling to make it in this economy. And so if you can, carve off, that extra bedroom you don't use, or the formal living room and dining room that you only use on high holidays, but now you're going to your daughter and her families for Christmas, that's the kind of stuff. Wall that off and rent it out for income, and maybe even sell it or whatever for that extra income and retirement nest egg. And that's what people are doing for the most part. We also see family compounds, lots of family compounds. And so and the exciting part about that is, we see a lot of huge numbers of first-time home buyers, but they're afraid to get in the market. They can't afford it. Maybe rates are a little higher than they expected. But when you partner up with your parents, you get a bigger budget. You can go buy that single family house and build a 2 or 3 bedroom ADU in the back, and now you have a family compound. And that's a lot cheaper to do. And the families that invest together do really well financially together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So one of the things that we were talking about in the past was when you build an ADU, then you can, whether or not you can separate that and sell that separately. And to my knowledge, that was not happening or was not possible. And and with what you're describing, it may bring more housing, but I am wondering, in the resale of something like this, I can only imagine how complicated that this would be. And also, is there a possibility to sell these units individually, or if you were to sell them all as one, what would that even look like? And you may not have the answer to that, but I'm just wondering. I cannot wrap my head around it.
Well, the good news is that's my job. My job is to deliver it on a silver platter to the realtors to be sold, titles cleared, all that kind of stuff. And so basically, there's a couple ways to do it. And by the way, the first one in California sold. You can imagine it was a 3-bedroom ADU in San Jose. It was built on the same lot as another single family home, and they just had a shared driveway. That was it. No shared utilities, nothing else. They created what we call a cloud condo. It's a very simple homeowners association, no meetings, no dues. They just share responsibility for that driveway, and that's it. It sold, they built it for about $400,000. It sold for $1.5 million. Just like any other single family house, right? Now, if it looks like a condo, you're going to sell it like a condo. It's still part of an HOA. It's in that little thing. We have to file, the CC&Rs, and that's where my team takes care of that as part of the construction process. We're building all of that into the construction process. So when you go to sell it, it should already have, CC&Rs. It should already have a plan, titles cleared, and you just sell it. If it looks like a condo, you're going to sell it like a condo. If it looks like a townhome or a row home, you're going to sell it like a townhome or row home. Conversely, I was just on a call yesterday where they're looking at doing a 1,200 square foot ADU on the side yard, and then doing an internal on the main house, doing an internal conversion and an ADU. And they will probably sell the main house as a kind of a triplex. Now, is a little hard to appraise. Yeah. It's, you don't find a whole lot, although there are more and more, but the rental income and the potential says it all. And that's the kind of unit that like multi-generational families would buy in a heartbeat, right? You can have
Yeah.
grandparents in the junior ADU, the adult kids and grandchildren in the front. You can, reconvert if you choose the internal conversion, or you can have, there's all kinds of ways to do that. In the construction industry, we call it flex space. And we really encourage clients to think about building with flex space in mind. I'll give you an example. I have a client who has space for a 3-bedroom ADU. Her kids just started college, and so she wants to rent it for extra income. Well, her optimal extra income is to have, instead of building a 3-bedroom, which might rent for $5,000 in her neighborhood, she can build 3 1-bedrooms each, but attach them as such so that the units could be, carve a wall or carve a hallway between them, and could be reconnected to later on when the kids come home, they've got grandchildren, you can turn that into a 3-bedroom house. Because the 1-bedroom units in that area are renting for $2,500 a month. So that would be $7,500 in income. So we call that flex space in the industry. And when as we make these plans, we really like to plan ahead, not just next year for the rental income, but what's going to happen in 5, 10, 20 years.
Now, you mentioned that the utilities are set out separately, and I am thinking that it's very expensive to separate these utilities, and very time consuming to separate these utilities. How do you work around the expense and the time required to separate utilities, if you indeed separate utilities? And if you don't separate utilities, then how do you keep the peace between everybody involved and the common utilities?
Yeah, great question. And the good news is we've been working on this forever. I am the co-chair of the ADU committee at the Building Industry Association. We've been working with SDG&E for months now, and we're getting ready to do a training of my contractors to do 15-day permits and self-inspections. And SDG&E is really incentivized to do that, and frankly have been wonderful to work with. In some cases, the clients want separate utilities and separate panels. That can cost about $10,000 in a larger construction budget. That's about $60 a month on a mortgage. That's it, $60 a month. Alternatively, when you have 10 units, and it's complicated, maybe it really only makes sense to have one connection. There's a concept called mini splits. And so you have mini splits. So you have one entry of the electrical or whatever utility, water, everything. And then you have splits to the different units where they can track the usage. And then that gets billed as part of the HOA. So, and as you know, with some condos include water or sewer. Some condos include trash fees, and that's part of your HOA fees and that kind of thing. The mini splits help in monitoring people's usage and, assessing that right. But most people don't want an HOA. So I totally get that.
I mean, I think basically a complex like this, it actually makes more sense, even though, we're not in love with HOAs, but they're a necessary evil, especially when you're dealing with a situation like this. I think it helps to keep the peace.
Oh, absolutely. And look, if you want to live in downtown North Park or downtown or, you know, in the hip and cool areas, that's the dealio, right? The only place to build is up, and that means having, you know, condos. And so that's the trade-off there.
That's
So
good.
so everybody wants differently, but and that's the options. We're already working on what we call cleanup bills legislation for this year. I'm actually working on one myself, trying to make lot splits a lot easier. We've been able to do lot splits since 2023, but not many have been done. And that's because with the lot splits, you're paying the municipalities to physically go out and survey and do the legwork on splitting the lot. Well, City of San Diego is completely understaffed. They don't have time, and you're paying for staff time. So you're looking at 6 months to a year and $50,000. The condotization, you're hiring a private surveyor to submit that and have it stamped approval. And that's why we were excited about the condotization. But like the new legislation would say, look, why can't we just have a surveyor do the work of the city, submit it for city approval for a basic lot split? That would just be so much easier. So as we get more and more comfortable with all this infill building, that makes sense. We're figuring out solutions. Right now, we've gotten a lot of the state legislation done, and so it's local implementation with the city of San Diego and the county. Like I told you, the SDG&A thing has been wonderful. We're getting ready to do some work on fire protection and fire hardening, because I'm going to say something really revolutionary, but fire sprinklers don't save lives. There is not a shred of data that they save lives. And that is evident in the LA fires, right? I mean, it made no difference on that. And so why do we have these $20,000 system required? And the answer was it was special interests that put those in. So if we can save a client $20,000 by not having them have a fire, especially with today's materials, the fire suppression systems were implemented in the 1970s when housing material was still pretty flammable. All of today's construction product is fire retardant, like everything. So drywall, insulation, even the wood they're building with fire resistant wood, if you can believe that, if you even use wood anymore. A lot of people don't. So it's pretty exciting what we're seeing in the construction industry today, especially as we move into factory built construction as well, which is really fun to watch.
So here's another question on that term, which I don't know if it's practical the way that the lots are set out, but this is something I've heard from the fire department. What they were saying was that in order for structures to be safe and for ambers not to travel and to have a safer infill, structures need to be 15 feet away from each other.
Yeah, that is really what they're saying. Embers fly more than 15 feet. Their real issue is getting their huge trucks in. And there's been discussion like, well, how does Europe do it on those little tiny cobblestone streets? And the answer is the smaller trucks. So, and in most cases, we have alleyways and so on. We also have rules like the units can be no more than 150 feet from the fire hydrants and all kinds of other things. So there's lots of excellent, thoughtful discussion. Nobody wants a fire hazard. I mean, nobody wants it. But like, where are we going overkill or doing something because we've always done it that way? And where can we create efficiencies?
Got it. Okay, so one other point that I see comes down to convenience and lifestyle, and that is parking or lack thereof.
Yeah. So I am, it's interesting. We at the BIA, the contractors there have signed a pledge to always include parking in their projects. And I really strongly encourage parking anyway. You are going to lose out if you don't offer parking. I mean, we see rents are at minimum $500 a month less if you don't have parking. Having said that, even when the place is next to a transit authority, the West is just not designed. Having said that, the reality is, and this is not this year or even next year, but we have Waymo coming on the streets, and we have whole cities around the world where people don't own cars anymore. And we have in Spain, for example, trucking is done via wireless systems on their freeways. And it works like railroads. They're replacing their railroads with a lane on the freeway just for Mack trucks, where the driver pulls in, can go to sleep, the truck travels in that lane, and that's how it is. Waymo is rolling out in San Diego. It's completely driverless. They're finally doing the studies. It is cheaper to pay for people rather than pay for transit systems, pay for low-income Waymo use. I mean, that would get rid of buses, that could get rid of all these expensive methods, and then you don't really need parking. Now, again, that's not today. Nobody fire me off and, bomb my apartment and whatever, right? I get it, because I already see, like, people want parking, they pay for parking and for the return on investment for my builders. But ultimately, I think we need to be honest. And I would treat parking as flex space. So if you build a garage for parking, maybe 10 years from now, you might convert that to a unit.
So here's and I feel strongly about parking for several reasons. One is we used to live in New York, and we had a rent control apartment, and we used to pay $400 for our rent control apartment and $1,200 for one parking spot.
Oh, I believe it. I lived in DC for years. Yeah.
And this is New York. This is New York, where the public transportation was way, way better than what we have in San Diego. And even then, parking spots were treasured, because, if you're going from New York to New Jersey, you're not going to want to take the train. It's a pain, and you want to have your own car on the weekend. Right. And I feel like even if we get to a point where we are traveling and having our own Waymo cars, right? Yeah. We still need to, at the end of the day or at night, we would still have to store it someplace, and preferably off the street and into a safe space.
Yeah. And again, this is where, and I'm such a nerd on policy, Roxanne. 5 years ago, the CEO of Ford was at a conference talking about the future, like what's Ford view as the future. And she said the answer is a mobile app subscription. She said, you won't own a car, you won't maintain a car, you won't insure a car. You will pay Ford a subscription to pick you up in a driverless car, maybe a Ford Escort to drive you to work every day or drive you to the grocery store or whatever. And then on the weekends for date night, you might upgrade to a Corvette. But ultimately, the car companies are talking about that. Now, again, that's not today. It's not even next year, maybe 10 years. But I do think we need to have that thought and discussion now, because right now people are saying, well, we don't have enough road capacity. If we had an all driverless car system, we're only currently driving 42% of our roadways. That's it. We only use 40% of our existing roadways. So driverless cars are safer. Insurance companies are now offering 50% discounts if you have a subscription, for example, to Tesla's self-driving functionality. So there's a lot of really interesting discussion in the future, about where the future of that goes. Again, we still need parking right now. That doesn't stop it. But I think we really need to be thoughtful about where are we really investing and what's the future. Why would we rely on 500-year-old train technology when we can have wireless cars that don't require parking overnight?
All right. Very good conversations and very interesting conversations. So thank you. I think we have a good idea of where the future, what the future holds, and where the future goes. And on that note, everybody, we want to thank you, Meredith, for coming to one of our podcasts. And there is our speaker, Meredith Munger with Cross Country Mortgage, and she is an expert in loans on ADUs in particular. Of course, she does any type of loan that you can imagine, but her niche is in the ADU financing. There is Meredith's phone number if you want to get a hold of her. And there's Meredith's email address if you want to email her. And her website is aduloans.net if you want to check out her website. And of course, if you guys are thinking of buying or selling, of course, not as exciting as what Meredith works with, but we would love to be your go-to people if you're thinking of real estate and moving real estate. And there's my phone number for that purpose. And there is Santiago's phone number for that purpose. We also love to see you guys give us a follow on Instagram. There's our handle on Instagram. Or on Facebook, you can give us a follow there. We would appreciate that. And there is our website if you guys want to contact us. So again, thank you very much, Meredith, for joining us today. And audience, of course, we thank you as well. And hope to see you on another episode of our podcast. And make it a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Meredith.